Okay, I'd like to talk to you about drawing spatially. And what I mean by that is, when we're designing our characters, when we're creating a character, we're creating them in space, or at least we're thinking about them being in space. I'm always thinking about that. As much as possible, you want to think three-dimensionally. You want to think about form in space, not just a flat. Even though we're creating two-dimensional images, you want those images to feel like they're living in a three-dimensional space. And one of the best ways of doing that is to construct your character of simple shapes, simple forms, and moving those forms around in space. And there's multiple different things you can do. There's overlap. There's all kinds of different perspective cues that, things getting smaller. My hand here is bigger than my hand back here. If I, in foreshortening, if I extend my arm towards the camera, there's overlapping shapes. These are the things that I'm talking about. Not getting caught up in the details right away, but thinking about those simple shapes underneath in order to draw spatially. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and let's say we have a character. I'm going to do like a big burly character because they're kind of fun to break up into shapes. So let's say we have this guy. We'll give him a little head and kind of a big heavy jaw, big heavy neck, real big athletic guy. Let's give him a big kind of real, kind of superhero-y. Superhero-y. That's an adjective. So we'll give him a big barrel chest, big shoulders, like so. Really big arms. Now I'm purposely drawing him kind of, the pose kind of flat because I want to make a point here. So, and I'm just drawing, notice I'm drawing very simple shapes. And I'm keeping it very quick. And we'll give him some fairly athletic legs. I want to keep some fun kind of cartoony proportions. So he's kind of got that, he's got that big giant upper body. And so we'll do like so. Very quick, like so. All right, so we've got this guy. That's pretty big. Now, if I'm thinking about this guy, let me blow this up a little bit. I'll get a little bit of detail. Little detail in his. There we go. Give him a little attitude. There we go. There. So we've got this guy. He's a big kind of bulky, superhero-y, athletic, whatever you want it. Let's give him a little. We'll give him a. Let's give him a superhero haircut. Actually, let's give him. Looks more like a goofy college football haircut. There, we'd do that. Okay. So we've got this guy. Now I'm thinking in very simple shapes. So they're big. Got the big barrel chest. If I draw through. And we're talking about drawing through here as well. If we draw through and then we attach these shoulders and the arms, come right into here. So I think, I break up these shapes. There's a forearm, there's the upper arm, there's a shoulder, upper arm, forearms, down into the wrists. We'll redraw that. There we go. Down into the wrists and the hands, and make them very simple right now. Let's go ahead and put a center line on them. Maybe a belly button, chest, like so. All right, so we've got a very simple guy here. And I'm thinking about the thighs as a unit, the calves as a unit, down into the ankles, the feet as separate units. I think about these shapes. This is what I think about. So here, I've done very quickly as a rough. make that a little more symmetrical. Done very quickly as a rough, a very basic kind of cartoony superhero kind of guy. Now, it's kind of flat, and it's a little bit it's kind of pleasing. Actually, the arms will be a little bit in front. But now when we start posing the character, you want to think about that character in space, and you want those poses to feel like there's some dimension to them. And so there's certain cues that you want to give the viewer in order for them to understand that the arm is coming out and that sort of thing. So let's take this guy and we'll shrink him up, and let's just put him off to the side just as our piece of reference. Now maybe I want him to be walking towards us, okay? So now let's take the same guy, and now I'm going to start with the head, that big jaw, that big neck. But now, coming down into the chest. But now maybe that chest is overlapping the shoulder right here. I want to have a little twist to the body maybe. I'm going to shrink that up because I'm drawing too big. I always draw too big. I get kind of big and bold and end up having to shrink up the drawing. But so now I'm thinking about the shoulders back here and this back here. So see, already I've got overlap, so it's feeling like I've got some shoulders turning toward the camera, right? And let's say, I want that, I'm thinking about overlapping shapes, overlap, 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 right into the hand. So he's walking towards us. See those simple overlapping shapes? You want to keep those cues, those visual cues, clear. And now, well, if this arm's coming forward, let's have this arm going back. So I want overlap, overlap. Now look at that. All of a sudden that arm feels like it's going back away from us. You want those visual cues to be nice and clear. Let's push that chest way out. Maybe we put some opposing tilts right here. So he's walking towards us. Well, what happens when he walks towards us? Well, we're going to have that thigh coming forward. But now to make it feel like it's really coming forward, I want to overlap these shapes. I'm overlapping. See the overlap. And then if this leg's going back because he's walking, well, it's overlapping the other way. So now all of a sudden it feels like, look at that, he's walking towards us. And we'll come right into, let's give him some kind of big feet. Like so. Maybe some big feet back here. Very simple. So then if I lighten this up, so then I can come in here and I've got those simple visual cues set up for myself to help give depth. Now I can come in and just have some fun. Adding the details. And the details will just sit right on top. There we go. Let's give him a nice big heavy chin. Those details will just sit right on top of what we just created. Goofy guy. I hate that hair. I hate that hair. Let's give him, let's just give him a crew cut. Give him a flat top. Make him feel kind of military. There we go. So we'll come down. I still like to keep my line work simple, but now I can come in and add some detail, like so. You know, if you want to add a little bit more detail, if you want your character to have a little more detail, then go ahead and do that. But now make sure you keep those depth cues, those overlaps, those overlapping lines consistent, see? And by doing that, you're going to add depth to your drawing. And it makes it feel more dynamic. So we got that happening there. And I can add anatomy if I want to come in, you know, add that forearm coming around, maybe the elbow comes in. I don't have to add a whole lot. But see, by keeping those cues, get into that wrist, by keeping those cues consistent that I established in that rough and overlapping, you know, the simple shapes, then all of a sudden I can sit down and just have some fun with the drawing like I'm doing now. And it all stays really cool. Overlap, like so. Nice simple line work. You know, I pick my places where I want the detail to happen. Remember, be selective with where you put detail. Remember, you don't want evenness. If everything is detailed, then it gets boring because it starts looking like noise. You want quiet areas, and you want busy areas. But see, now we got these overlapping shapes happening right here. Nice simple line work. Pushing that hip up. Overlapping shapes. Overlapping shapes. Think simple forms. Simple forms. I'm going to pull that top of that hand out. See, I can do that because I'm thinking, okay, I'm thinking spatially, that hand's going away from us. Simple forms. There, that feels better. Because when you think in simple forms, then it's a lot easier to start thinking of them spatially. And then once you have them established, then you can start going over the top and adding the details that you need, that you want. And let's go ahead and finish this off. I'm going to pull that foot out this way a little bit. Maybe see his ankle. Just something very fast. Boom, 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 boom. There. So there you see the same character, but now it's a little bit more dynamic. So now thinking that way, you can start having some fun. You know, when I'm creating a character, let's say it's this guy, and I'm thinking this way, I can sit down and scribble out a whole bunch of different poses, just very rough, thinking in these forms, and then I can go back in and pick the ones that I like, and I can take them maybe a little bit further to finish. Let's go ahead and try another one. Let's try something that, you know, we can open up the silhouette a little bit, make it a little bit more clear. Let's take the same character, but now maybe he's coming towards us. Let's see, I'm just going to make something up. Maybe his more kind of a fighting superhero pose. Thinking simple, that maybe that body is coming towards us. I'm thinking that the big body, his neck is going to kind of be connected in here, like so. I always start very rough like this, because when I do that, then I know, okay, that trapezius muscle is coming in right here. That's going to feed into that shoulder. Well, there's that simple shape coming into the shoulder, upper arm, forearm. See those simple overlapping shapes? Just like so. Maybe he's doing the same thing, shoulder, upper arm, forearm. And I want to feel that flow. I'm always talking about flow. And now we can get down into maybe here. Overlap, the whole chest is overlapping the hips and the waist. See how quickly you already got a sense of what this pose is. and it's just very quick overlapping shapes. I'm thinking in simple form and drawing spatially. Okay, simple form, drawing spatially. So here, let's overlap it this way. Let's make it feel like that leg's coming towards us again. Or actually, no, I'm just. So I'm going to bring this down. Simple shapes. Actually, I want to make that leg a little smaller because I'm losing his proportion. So he should have a much bigger upper body. And that's the other thing too. When you're thinking about, I make mistakes as much as the next guy, but I'm always looking for where I might be messing up. And I'm always thinking about proportion. Well, we've already established this guy, big upper body, little legs, right? Well, let's go ahead and make sure we stick with that. So I'm going to bring these thighs, make this thigh, much smaller. Stocky, keep them stocky. But because I'm thinking simply, I can go very quickly. There, that feels a little better. I can go very quickly. And maybe that other leg's back here. Back here. There, something like that. And here, once again, thinking spatially, got that ball that makes up the cranium. I can maybe extend that cranium back a little bit. But maybe we're getting a slight down shot on the face. Big chin. I like that big chin, like so. Ears up here because we're looking down. See, now look. Now in just a couple of minutes, by thinking about overlapping form, overlapping shapes, simple shapes, and I'm keeping it rough. Always keep it rough when you're first starting out. Overlap. Feel that. That feels like those arms are really coming back. I always, you want to feel that happening. There. So we got a pretty dynamic pose. Actually, I'm going to pull this whole arm. I'm going to redraw that arm because it doesn't feel right. I'm going to pull the shoulder back. I'm going to pull that back even further. See, that's the other thing too. So you can really have some fun. There we go. Really pull that back. Overlap. There, like so. Elbow. Right there, overlap, and right down into the fingers too, I think about the fingers overlapping, there we go. So everything, and I'm trying to feel flow. I want this to come around into here. Everything I want to feel like it feeds together. So now, just like we did with the other one, I can come in here and I can start to have some fun with the drawing. So then once this is all established like we've got now, then I can come in and just actually start to have some fun. I've already established all the spatial cues, the overlapping, the simple shapes. Now it's just come in and have some fun drawing. This is how I would animate when I was at Disney. This is how we get through our scenes fast and keeping them consistent. We're keeping those shapes nice and simple, right? And by keeping them simple, there we go, give them a real kind of determined look on his face. By keeping those shapes simple, then I was able to get my scenes, animated fairly quickly. I want to retain that simplicity right there, right into the chin. There we go. Let's give him that hair. There we go. That crew cut looking hair. By doing that, I was able to get my scenes animated fairly quickly. And not only that, they have, you know, your work will have a much better sense of being in space, you know, sitting in, you know, in a three-dimensional world. You always want to think three-dimensionally. There's that shoulder coming in, that bicep feeds into the pectoralis. All that's in, you know your anatomy. Really know your anatomy, especially if you're doing human characters. You don't want to skimp on that. Even, you know, a big kind of cartoony character like this, I know that anatomy up front. Yeah, I want to hold on to, just like we talked about earlier, I want to make sure I'm holding on to those perspective cues, those overlapping cues. There we go. Nice and simple. I'm going to keep that real simple. Going right into the wrist. There we go. And then you can just come in like I'm doing. Look and see, I'm keeping the same overlapping cues all the way down into the fingers, keeping all that really, really consistent. So by doing all this, like I was saying, you're going to be able to, I'm going to bring that up even further. There we go. That feels even better. See that? And I'm overlapping. You're going to keep that sense of space nice and consistent. And that's really what we want. Right into the elbow. There we go. Down into the forearm. Simple shapes in space. Simple shapes in space. It sounds like a Muppet show. There we go. And let's come in here. So then it's just really having fun with getting everything, you know, getting those details in. You can see I'm getting in there and playing with that anatomy a little bit. Maybe thickening up these ankles, getting a bigger foot. You know, you can play with all that kind of stuff. Even this foot, you know, by adding those lines there, I've got that overlapping shape happening right into the calf muscle, or into the calf itself. There's the crotch overlapping that back leg, really pushing it back, just like so. And next thing you know, ankle, you've got something. So look how quickly we did this. I'm going to actually pull this up and overlap that. That'll really make it feel like that leg's coming forward. There we go. I want that feel right there. So see how quickly we did that? Just thinking about overlapping shape, posing. So, you know, all based on this guy over here. You can break your character up. The character you're designing, break it up into those basic shapes, you know. And like I said, a lot of times I think about forearm, I think about these big chunks on the body, and that's what I use to start overlapping. I've got some animal characters here that I was going to go over. Now here's some drawings that I did a few days ago in preparation for this for the course, and these are finished, obviously. But if I take these and lighten them up, I'm going to do a little bit of drawovers on them, but I'm going to put a layer in between first. So if I lighten these up, once again, same thing. I'm thinking about overlapping shapes in here. Here I've got some bears. I'm very familiar with bears. I've drawn and painted a lot of them. I directed Brother Bear, so that, you know, that in itself, I drew a ton of them. But let me start to draw here. First thing is you got this big simple shape for the head. And actually I usually start even broader than that, you know, start with that ball and start building on top of the ball. But if I'm just break this down a little bit, big simple shape coming through. Here I'm going to draw this through like so. And then it goes into the neck, overlap, shoulders. Here's that, the shoulder actually comes forward and he's lifting his shoulder there. Those shoulder, if I drew through, it would come around. Let me bring this up like so, into the body, coming around like so. All these overlapping shapes, overlapping simple shapes, like so. Even here, you've got this forearm coming in, just like on a person. He's got the forearm and his hand or his paw, like so. See how all these shapes, you know, breaking them up simply, and you end up with a very simple pose. And then it's just a matter of getting the details in there. See how these shapes overlap, thinking in those terms to think spatially. I'm always thinking spatially, okay? There's that. Let me pull over another one. Here are some deer drawings that I did. And let me do the same thing. Let's take this one. I think about the hips coming down. First of all, we got this big shape here, but then you got all these parts connected. You know, we got the shoulders, overlap. Simple shapes. Even here, you know, we got the neck coming down, but the head, muzzle comes down like so. All overlapping shapes. Simple. I don't get caught up in all those details. Think, you know, break the body up into different form. You know, with this guy, you know, we've got that chest, we got the arms that we broke up into different pieces. Same thing with animals. Once you understand their anatomy, you do the same thing. So here I've got this neck that comes down and connects to the chest. Shoulders come around, all one shape. Then I'm thinking about the body back there into the hips. And then that's you know, these overlapping shapes, those main intersections that you can see right here, that's where I put my line work. So that when I take that away and I have my detail, then you can see that's what I'm using. That's what keeps the drawing clear and it gives it depth. All of these. Same thing here. Look at here. Over, you know, shoulder, and I'm thinking, you know, drawing through shoulder into the body, which comes through here, into the hips and the legs, overlapping simple shapes. Like so. And then when I come in, and I bring this in here, so then when I come in to tie it all down, I've got that, just like we did with the superhero back here, I've got a nice little framework to go off of, okay? So think about that. When you're drawing your character, break it down into simple shapes, and then take those shapes, once you get through your proportions, which, you know, we've talked about, once you have established those proportions, you've got something that's interesting, then it's time to start posing it. And so that's what we're doing here. We're taking that, we're moving those shapes around, and we want to create something that sits in three-dimensional space. And by doing that, you got to overlap those shapes, okay? So let's go ahead and move on to the next video.